Om Namo Bhagavate Śrī Aruṇācala Ramaṇāya. Namaskāram. Today I'm going to be talking about verse 130 of Guru Vācaka Kōvai. Bhagavan uses a very beautiful analogy in this verse. But the verse is, there's a lot packed into the verse, and it's put in a almost a sutra-like form. Sadhu Om sometimes used to say some Tamil verses are often like telegram English. In old days when messages were sent by telegram, you had to pay for every letter or whatever it was. So the letter, it was compact into almost a sutra-like, the message was sent in a sutra-like form. So such is the case often with Tamil verses. The literal meaning of the verse is, one who is ensnared in ignorance, clinging to the body and world as real, achieving peace, will, leaving ignorance, steadfastly, like an uḍumbu, not let go of the real nature of the soul in the heart. Experiencing suffering will not ever be. That is the literal meaning of the verse, but it's not a fully formed sentence, so we have to flesh it out a bit to make sense of it. That is, Shanti Madhatal. Madhatal is a verbal noun meaning achieving, and Shanti is peace, so achieving peace. But how does it fit in with the rest of the sentence? We have to add more words to make sense of it. So we can do so in various different ways, but the central, the meaning remains the same if we understand what is implied. So achieving peace means, we can take to mean either for achieving peace or for experiencing peace, or we can take it, we can expand it a bit more and say, if one wants to achieve peace. There are various ways of taking it. So I've taken as for achieving or experiencing peace, one who is ensnared in ignorance, clinging to the body and world as urudi. Urudi means stable, permanent, certain, real, dependable, beneficial, or good. It's got a range of meanings. This is what we take this body and world to be something very, all these apply to how we take the world. We take it to be something stable, something permanent, something that is very certain. But definitely, of course, the world exists. I see it. Of course, this body exists. It is me. So it all seems so certain, so real, so dependable. And we also take it as, generally, we take it as beneficial or good until it causes us trouble. And then we have second thoughts about how beneficial really this body and world are. But so all these various meanings of urudi can apply here. So for achieving peace, one who is ensnared in ignorance, clinging to a body and world as real, we can say, will, leaving such ignorance, or the word for ignorance can also mean folly, will need to steadfastly cling like an uḍumbu, steadfastly like an uḍumbu, not let go of the real nature of the soul in the heart. Uḍumbu is, this is a very nice analogy. An uḍumbu is a Bengal monitor. It's a very large lizard, and it's a particular variety of Bengal monitor, but is noted for its ability to cling very firmly to any surface. There's even a belief that thieves will sometimes capture one of these, an uḍumbu, a Bengal monitor lizard, and will use it to enter houses. That is, they'll put the monitor lizard on the wall, and the lizard will cling so firmly to the wall that the thief can hold onto the monitor lizard and climb up. Whether that is actually the case or not, I don't know, but that's a very common belief about this Bengal monitor. So that's what in Tamil is called an uḍumbu. So when Bhagavan says, like an uḍumbu, he's referring to that ability to cling very, very firmly, very fast to something. So what he says is, what we need to do is, like an uḍumbu, we need to not let go of the real nature of the soul in the heart. That means we need to cling to our own being so firmly. And then he says, that's the first sentence. And then the second sentence is, experiencing suffering will not ever be. That implies for one who does so, if we cling so firmly to our own being in the heart, we will not experience any suffering. We only experience suffering when we allow the mind to go outwards. If we cling firmly to ourselves, we will thereby avoid any suffering. And I've also, I explained this, that is, if we wish to attain peace and be eternally free of suffering, we need to give up considering the body and world to be real or dependable, and instead need to cling firmly like an uḍumbu to our own real nature, namely sat-cit, pure being awareness, which is what is always shining in our heart as I am. So there are various things in this verse. That is, firstly, Bhagavan explains what is meant by ignorance. Ignorance is nothing but clinging to the body and world as if they were real. We cling to this body as I. As soon as we take the body to be I, the body seems to be real, because what is actually real is only I. When we take the body to be I, the body seems to us to be real, and consequently the whole world seems to be real. So because we take this body to be I, we cling to it so firmly, and thus we are caught up in ignorance, and we undergo samsara, the ceaseless or seemingly ceaseless cycle of birth and death. So all this this is inevitable so long as we take the body and world to be real. And we will inevitably take them to be real so long as we take the body to be I. And taking the body to be I is ignorance, as Bhagavan made clear in so many places. So we can't achieve peace so long as we take this body to be ourself and consequently take the world to be real. So if we want to achieve peace, we have to stop clinging to, Bhagavan says, leaving ignorance. That implies leaving this clinging to the body and world. We need to leave that aside, and we need to cling firmly like an uḍumbu to our own real nature, our being, which is ever shining in the heart as I am. That is the essence of that. So this, I've always, ever since I first came across this verse, I've always loved this analogy of clinging like an uḍumbu. Clinging, that's how firmly Bhagavan expects us to cling. We can see this, I mean, Bhagavan expresses this idea in so many places. For example, in the 10th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, Bhagavan says, even though the Shaya vasanas, which come from time immemorial, rise in countless numbers like ocean waves, they will all be destroyed when Swarupa Dhyana increases and increases. When he says increases, he means when it becomes deeper and more intense. Swarupa Dhyana means Swarupa is our own real nature, in other words, our own being, I am. And dhyana means meditation. So in effect, Swarupa Dhyana means self-attentiveness or attending to our own being. And then he says, without giving room even to a doubting thought, putting an end to so many vasanas, is it possible to remain only as Swarupa? It is necessary to cling tenaciously to self-attentiveness. Here he expresses it in a very the wording in Tamil is very forcible. He says, Vida pidiyai pidikavendum. Sarupa dhyanate vida pidiyai pidikavendum. Vida pidiyai is an adverb. It's formed of two parts. Vida means not leaving. Pidi means clinging. So not leaving clingingly, in effect it means. So it can't be, that's why I translated it as tenaciously. But it's even more forceful in Tamil than the English adverb tenaciously. Vida pidiyai pidikavendum. It's necessary to cling to Surupa Dhyana. So that's where this analogy of the uḍumbu emphasizes this, how firmly we need to cling to ourselves. And then in the next sentence he says, however great a sinner one may be, if instead of lamenting and weeping, I'm a sinner, how am I going to be saved? One completely rejects the thought that one is a sinner and is steadfast in self-attentiveness, one will certainly be reformed, or reform means one will be saved. And then in the next paragraph, he talks about as and when thoughts appear, then and there it's necessary to annihilate them all by vicārana, in the very place from which they rise. Vicārana means self-attentiveness. So in order to annihilate thoughts as and when they arise, we need to cling so firmly to self-attentiveness. And then he defines what is meant by Vairāgya and jñāna. Not attending to anything other than oneself is Vairāgya or nirasa. Nirasa means desirelessness. Vairāgya means more or less the same. Not leaving or letting go of oneself is knowledge. So again, not leaving, not letting go. Again, it gives that idea of clinging firmly to ourselves. In truth, these two, Vairāgya and jñāna, are one. Just as pearl divers, tying stones to their waist and sinking, pick up pearls that are found at the bottom of the ocean, so each one, sinking deep within oneself with Vairāgya, must obtain the Ātma-mukha. But Vairāgya is not attending to anything else. In order to avoid attending to anything else, we need to not let go of ourselves. We need to cling firmly to ourselves. So again, this idea of clinging firmly to self-attentiveness is implied throughout this. And then the next sentence is a particularly beautiful one. He says, if one clings fast to uninterrupted Swarupa Smarana, self-remembrance, until one attains Swarupa, that alone is sufficient. So when he says, if one clings fast to uninterrupted Swarupa Smarana, self-remembrance, that is self-remembrance or self-attentiveness, it amounts to the same. In order to cling fast to it, and if it's to be uninterrupted, how firmly we have to cling to that. That is, constantly vasanas are rising. The vasanas are the inclination to attend to things other than ourselves. They are constantly rising, constantly making us feel inclined to attend to other things. So in order to hold on to self-attentiveness, we need to hold on so firmly. So that's again where this clinging firmly like an uḍumbu is implied here. And then later on in the 16th paragraph, he defines what is meant by vicāra. He defines Ātma-vicāra. Sadakalamum manate Ātma-vil Tirupati-kutan Ātma-vicāra Mendrupaya. That means the name Ātma-vicāra is only for always. Sadakalamum means always. It's a very strong way of saying always. Always um, uh, um, keeping the mind fixed on Atma, on oneself. So that's a very clear definition of what he means by Ātma-vicāra. Ātma-vicāra is keeping our attention constantly on ourselves. For that, we need to hold on so firmly. So again, this idea of clinging like an uḍumbu, it helps to emphasize that what he's implying in all these sentences. So this is the essence of Bhagavan's teaching. The practical application of Bhagavan's teaching is to try to hold on to self-attentiveness like an uḍumbu. If we hold on to self-attentiveness, everything else will go on as it's meant to go on, but our attention will be kept firmly on ourselves. That is, and then whatever our body or mind need to do in accordance with destiny, they will be made to do. So we don't have to worry about anything else according to Bhagavan. We just have to cling firmly to ourselves. And then for this verse, Sadhu Om has given a prose paraphrase in Tamil. What Sadhu Om, the meaning of Sadhu Om's paraphrase is, if an ignorant person who is clinging to the body and world as real wants to attain peace, may he, abandoning the ignorance that they are real, cling firmly to Atman, which shines in the heart, without letting go, like an uḍumbu, or like the clinging of an uḍumbu, the grasping of an uḍumbu. That is, we need to cling so firmly to ourselves. Thereafter, he will not ever experience any suffering. So the solution to all suffering is simply to hold on to self-attentiveness. But in order to ward off that suffering permanently, we need to cling to self-attentiveness so firmly. Only when we cling to self-attentiveness so firmly will we, like the pearl diver, sink deep within and retrieve the Ātma-muttu, as Bhagavan says in Nāṉ Ār. The Ātma-muttu is the pearl of self. So in order to know ourselves as we actually are, we need to subside or sink deep back into our own being. And in order to do so, we need to cling so firmly, like an uḍumbu. We need to cling to self-attentiveness so firmly. That is the idea of this verse. So it's a very... I mean, Bhagavan is not saying anything here that he's not saying in so many other places in his teaching, but by introducing this analogy of the uḍumbu, he underlines his teaching. But what we have to do is cling firmly, uninterruptedly, to self-attentiveness. I'm sure we will all have to admit, but we are failing to do so. We're not always clinging to ourselves, but this is what we should be aiming for. Our aim in this practice is not just to be self-attentive for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, morning and evening. Throughout the day, we should be trying our best to hold on to self-attentiveness as much as we can. So we need to be developing that strength to cling as firmly as an uḍumbu to our own being in our heart. That is the idea of this verse. So it's a very, very beautiful verse, giving a very beautiful analogy. So does anyone have any questions on this? Or
there are a couple of questions. We'll just come to them. The first question on the verse is, can we cling firmly to our own being while still being in relationships in the world? How do we reconcile human relationships, being with a partner, etc., with achieving everlasting real peace? Because human relationships do make the body and world seem real, yet we're involved in human relationships daily. Is it prārabdha which keeps us in relationships, or could it be ego keeping us in relationships to keep us from clinging firmly to self? Could we say that it's a failure to get into human relationships because of how distracting it is to cling firmly to the...
That is, Bhagavan has made it clear, everything that we are given to experience in this life is determined by prārabdha. So whatever relationships we have and so on, this is all according to prārabdha. According to prārabdha is the fruit of past actions that we've done in previous birth, but Bhagavan has selected for us to experience in this lifetime. So as Bhagavan wrote in the note for his mother, what is never to happen will not happen in spite of any amount of effort. What is to happen will not stop in spite of any amount of obstructions. So we cannot change in any way what we are destined to experience. And in order for us to experience that, certain actions of mind, speech, and body are required. So our mind, speech, and body will be made by, people say, take it to be, if we're made by prārabdha. No, we're not made by prārabdha. We're made by God to act in accordance with prārabdha. And the we who act is not actually we, it's these three instruments of action: mind, speech, and body. So the mind, speech, and body will be made to do whatever is necessary for the prārabdha to unfold. This is what Bhagavan says in the first sentence of the note he wrote for his mother. In accordance with the prārabdha of each one, he who is for that, meaning God or Bhagavan, being there, being in every place we can take the mean, but more deeply, being in the heart of each one of us, Ātma-vicāra literally means will cause to dance. So he will make our mind, speech, and body do whatever is necessary in order for the prārabdha to unfold. So we need not worry about these things. All we need to do, according to Bhagavan, is cling firmly to self-attentiveness. Everything else, all the relationships, all the duties we may have, all these things, all these relationships, our relationships with our parents, our husband, our wife, our children, our siblings, our friends, our work colleagues, our boss in the office, and we have so many different types of relationship. We interact with people in so many different circumstances. So all these things, these all go on in accordance with prārabdha. So all these things will happen as they're meant to happen, whether we attend to them or not. So according to Bhagavan, all we need to do is to attend to ourselves so firmly, everything else will go on. Oh, and I'll say, all these things, these relationships and all these activities, it's not actually ours. Why we think this is my relationship, this is my action, I'm doing this, I'm thinking this thought, I'm saying this, these words, I'm doing this action, it's because of our identification with this mind, speech, and body, with this person we take ourselves to be. So all these relationships and everything, they're all for the person we take ourselves to be. And that person will be made to do whatever is needed to be done in accordance with prārabdha. So our duty is to cling firmly to self-attentiveness. That is what Bhagavan has made very clear to us. If we cling to self-attentiveness, all these things will go on as they are meant to go on. So if we're destined to have a relationship with a person, we can't avoid that. We'll have that relationship with the person. And depending on the destiny, that may be a smooth relationship. Sometimes we have, in most relationships, even in the closest relationships, there's sometimes some tensions, different points of view, or we make mistakes. All sorts of things are there. This is just the nature of samsara. But all this is going on in accordance with prārabdha. That doesn't mean that everything we do is in accordance with prārabdha. We have the freedom to want things that are not in accordance with prārabdha. We have a freedom to try for them. But we have no freedom to achieve anything that is not in accordance with prārabdha. We cannot avoid what is destined to happen, and we cannot experience what is not destined to happen. So the wise course is to cling firmly to self-attentiveness. The more we cling firmly to self-attentiveness, the more we're detaching ourselves from this person we take ourselves to be, and the more everything will go on as it is meant to. I mean, and everything's going to happen as it's meant to happen, whether we try to interfere or not. But so our trying to interfere, our trying our concerning ourselves with all these things is not necessary. What we need to do is to cling firmly to self-attentiveness in the heart. People will may think, oh, then this will make me very uncaring, not a caring husband or wife, not a caring child for my parents, not a caring parent for my children. No, if we're clinging firmly to self-attentiveness, everything will go on as it's meant to go on. And in fact, the person we take ourselves to be, because we are handing over responsibility for that person, for our mind, speech, and body, by clinging to self-attentiveness, we are willingly handing these over to Bhagavan. So everything will go on smoothly. He will make our mind, speech, and body behave in an appropriate manner. And because we are subsiding more and more, we're not rising as ego to interfere with all these things. So actually, the person we now take ourselves to be will play its role, whether as a husband or a wife or a child to the parents or a parent to a child. All these things, it'll all go on smoothly, provided we cling firmly to self-attentiveness. When I say go on smoothly, I mean go on as it's meant to go on. Of course, in the course of life, there will be ups and downs. There are problems in relationships. Sometimes we will face all sorts of problems, even in a very harmonious relationship. Sometimes the person we love may have an accident or may be ill, and we need to take care of them. There'll be so many things. But inwardly, we need to try to hold on to self-attentiveness in our heart. And everything that this mind, speech, and body need to do in accordance with prārabdha, Bhagavan will make them do. So in other words, we need to hand over our mind, speech, and body to him. And the way to hand over our mind, speech, and body to him is to stop rising as ego. Because when we rise as ego, we hold on to these things and say, this is I. I am this person. I am this body. These are my actions, my thoughts, my words. I am the doer. So long as we have that, we are entangling ourselves in all these things. To free ourselves from this entanglement with this person whom we seem to be, we have to hold on firmly to self-attentiveness. Everything else, everything will then happen as it's meant to happen without any interference with us, by us. Even if we don't cling firmly to self-attentiveness, everything will happen as it's meant to happen, but we'll be constantly trying to interfere in it. We'll be rising as ego, we'll be hurt by the words of others, by the events that happen, we'll react to all these things will be there. But actually nothing will change. Everything is going to happen as it's going to happen, whether we like it or not. So the wise course, according to Bhagavan, is to cling firmly, cling like an uḍumbu to ourself in the heart. But in order to do so, we need very, very great love, a willingness to surrender ourselves completely. Most of us don't have such intense love at present, but we can cultivate such love by trying our best to be self-attentive as much as possible. The more we're self-attentive, the more we subside. The more we subside, the easier it will be for us to hold on to that self-attentiveness. I hope that was an adequate answer to that question.
I think so. I just had one sort of a question about this, and I think that this was there in that question itself. As you say, we haven't all just surrendered completely and are not in, and do not necessarily already have that great love. And so we need to turn within, call it self-attention, be more sort of centered in oneself. One of the things is, I mean, when we say that things will happen exactly as they're going to happen, it's a kind of a, I mean, what is meant to be, not meant to be, is of course only known after the fact, in a sense. It's not as if while we're in the middle of it we can know. And but exactly. Perhaps what's involved in a statement like that Bhagavan has made is a certain lack of resisting, because to a lot of circumstances in life, we flail against it, we reject it, we're angry with it, or whatever.
Exactly.
It creates a lot of trauma and suffering. So there is a certain kind of an acceptance of reality, whatever that reality might be. And that comes with, in a way, taking a bit of a step back. We accept, and that process is taking a step back. We're not just focused on my thoughts and all the neurosis that go on and how we face the world. And then we act. It's not interference, but we do act. I mean, it may be not such an egotistical decision, because we've taken a step back, so to speak. We try to be a bit calm. We practice our meditation. And it's a bit more ethical as well, because, of course, we're not that self-centered. So in a practical way, it's a lack of resistance. Accepting is such an important thing and we don't. That's what I find in life. We always want something else, isn't it?
That's the problem.
So I think a kind of a grounding of oneself and the reality, and sometimes it takes a lot of hammering to be able to really accept. And the minute I think we start accepting, we become much more centered in ourselves. I mean, we become much more still, concentrated a little bit, just the acceptance, and then
it's two sides of the same coin. The way to step back, the way to distance ourselves from all these things, is to hold on to self-attentiveness. And to the extent to which we hold on to self-attentiveness, we as ego subside. To the extent to which we subside, we're allowing things to happen without our interference. The things are going to happen anyway, as they're meant to happen. That Bhagavan expresses it beautifully in the 13th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, when that one Parameshwara Shakti, that one supreme ruling power of God, when that is driving all karyas. When he says driving all karyas in this context means whatever needs or ought to be done or to happen. So everything is happening as it's meant to happen, and we're made to act in accordance with that. So this is all being driven by that one supreme ruling power. When such is the case, he says, instead of we also yielding to it, this yielding to it is not rising to interfere with this. So we need to just accept, as you say, we need to accept it and allow ourselves to subside back into the heart by clinging firmly to self-attentiveness. So he says, instead of we also yielding to it, why to be perpetually thinking it's necessary to do like this, it's necessary to do like that? It's not necessary for us to do anything other than cling to self-attentiveness, because whatever needs to be done, or ought to be done, our mind, speech, and body will be made to do those things. So this is what Bhagavan talks about. Instead of we also yielding to it, that is, everything is happening as it's meant to happen. We just need to accept it, allow things to flow as they're meant to flow. But the nature of ego is to rise and constantly try to interfere with this. And the way to stop rising as ego and interfering with these things is to cling firmly to self-attentiveness. So Bhagavan's teachings are so simple, but at the same time so very powerful. Because by clinging to to the extent to which we are self-attentive, to that extent we as ego subside. And the subsidence of ego is cutting at the root of the whole problem. So everything will go on as it's meant to go on. All we need to do is to subside more and more. And the way to subside more and more is to cling ever more firmly, like an uḍumbu, to ourself, to our own being.
A part of the self-attentiveness, I mean, what it consists of, because it's not the case that we immediately just go in, but say there is a certain situation, we tend to be very reactive, at least I do, whether it's in my speech, I may react, or with the body. So I think one of the things of I mean, just at a practical level, is that, we're just kind of watching ourselves a bit. We just focus on our own reactions. We just reflect a little before we speak. I mean, it's just that little bit of self-attentiveness with regard to each of our actions, because this is a build-up, isn't it, before we become more and more immersed.
Yes, but when
because if we don't start watching little things, how do we get to, we have to start becoming a bit aware of ourselves, of our actions, our responses, rather than just being out in the world, sort of a little bit towards the inner objects, and then those objects also subside, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but what Bhagavan means by self-attentiveness is not attending to our thoughts, to our reactions or everything. That may all be beneficial to a certain extent to help us step back a little, to detach. But Bhagavan is talking about attending to ourself, means I alone, not what we are doing, not how we are reacting. Because these are all just our reactions of the play of vasanas. In order to avoid being swayed by these vasanas, the most effective means is to hold on to self-attentiveness. That means not attending to anything other than our own being. And the more we attend only to our own being, we thereby subside back into our own being. So that is cutting all these thoughts and emotional reactions. It's cutting them right at the root. So so many different practices to help people at different levels. But this practice Bhagavan has given us of clinging to ourselves, not letting go of ourselves. In this verse, he says, he doesn't even use the word clinging. He emphasizes, he emphasizes, I mean, the clinging is implied, but he says, like an uḍumbu, not letting go of the real nature of the soul. The word he uses for real nature of the soul is viyanile. That means what? That it's a lot of words in Tamil. It's very difficult to adequately translate them in English. But what it means is what we essentially are, our very being. That is what we need to not let go of. If we like an uḍumbu, we don't let go of our own being, everything else will happen smoothly. So that's all we need to be concerned about. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good practice sometimes. It may be helpful at a certain stage to observe our reactions and to try to detach ourselves. But what Bhagavan is recommending is so much more powerful than this. Don't worry about the reaction. Don't concern yourself at all about them. Simply hold on to your own being. Then the reactions will, I mean, if we subside, our reactions will also subside along with us. And the way for us as ego to subside is to not let go of our own being, to hold on so firmly to our own being. but we don't let go of it at all, then we will, to the extent to which we are holding on to our own being, we thereby subside back into our being. And that cuts the very root of the whole problem.
It does, Michael, but that happens when we're just before enlightenment. So what I
Well,
was simply saying is that, I've been on this path now for 40 years, and I absolutely agree with this. There's nothing, is absolutely true. But, from 0 to 100, there are a number of numbers. And even though this is supposed to be direct and to the highest,
yeah,
I was simply saying from a human point of view, while we're in
yeah,
this body, we live in the world, we face this, and there is a process to turning within and coming
yeah,
into the self.
yes, yes,
We may have a glimpse at times, but in everyday life, and I think this is why these questions come up so many times, because that's the only question really people
yeah,
is, how do we get from that 0 to infinity? And the thing is, yes, we need to simply go in, absolutely. But it's just that, we are very, as human beings, we do identify to a degree at deeper levels, if not other levels. At some level, we try and let go. We know this, and that's why we read Bhagavan's teachings, we go to the
yeah,
satsangs where it helps. But it's just that little things can be helpful because, there are so many practitioners who've been on the path and teachers, and you see the reactiveness.
yeah,
There can be a dogmatism according to what people have experienced themselves. There are so many things like this,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that ego is right till the end. So
yeah.
just a little bit of self-criticism, just,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
because it's there till the end, that's what I
absolutely,
mean, that,
absolutely. But
yeah.
the
And I see it
point,
so often. People who are much more advanced than I am, that they become dogmatic. The ego takes over.
yeah,
What has been uh, good for me is good for everybody, kind of
yeah,
thing. And yet, it's very specific to individuals, to persons,
yeah.
and circumstance.
Bhagavan never
That's what I
forced
meant. That
Bhagavan never forced these things on people. But if we pay close attention to what he's saying, he's constantly encouraging us to aim high. Aiming high means what is the ultimate practice we all have to come to sooner or later? It is holding on to self-attentiveness. Bhagavan, in some place, Bhagavan said, sooner or later we all have to come to this. So why to put it off till later? Why not start with this? So, Bhagavan didn't force it on anyone, but he encouraged us. All his teachings are encouraging us in this simple practice of trying more and more to attend to our own being. This is the ultimate practice that all other practices must ultimately lead to. So Bhagavan encourages us to start with this. Because, as he said, this includes all other spiritual practices within it. This is there are two verses, verse 10 of Upadēśa Undiyār, where he says, being having subsided into the place from which we rose, that is karma and bhakti, that is yoga and jnana. And likewise in the 14th verse of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anabandham, the investigation to whom are all these karma, vibhakti, viyoga, ajnana, all these defects, that itself is all these four paths. That is karma, bhakti, yoga, and jnana. So he's constantly emphasizing that this is the essence of all spiritual practices. And if we do this, it includes within itself all the other spiritual practices. So as I say, Bhagavan isn't forcing this on anyone. He's not being dogmatic, but he's encouraging us. So I feel, well, for myself, I try to, because we're all in the same boat. We all have strong Vishaya vasanas. Our minds all tend to go outwards. But I try to pay heed to the encouragement of Bhagavan to try to hold on to self-attentiveness as much as possible, not to put it off.
No, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I think it's a question of, because there were some people to whom he said to do the aham mantra.
Yeah, because
just to help them focus so they can go in more deeply. I mean, it just depends on the level of the individual. Some are more advanced than others and so on. So I guess it's whatever works. Rati, you had a question? Rati?
Yes, Michael, about the verse itself, the beauty of the verse is the words in Tamil. I just want to quickly say, uḍumbu in Tamil means odamba. Odamba means, there's the first line when he says uḍumbu, he refers that ulahe uḍumbu, he's referring to the body, right? So odamba, we say odamba in formal.
Body is uḍumbu.
Uḍumbu.
And this
and
is
then, right. And then this what is this uḍumbu is the, what is this, the the lizard is the uḍumbu, right?
The lizard is uḍumbu. The body is uḍumbu.
Uḍumbu is body, and uḍumbu is lizard. And then in the third thing is idumbayurai. What is that?
Idumbai means suffering.
Oh, suffering. Idambuya, okay. Suffering lendrum illai. Okay. And then in the third one he says udambu pon tuir nilayit roman. So
Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. Uڵḷadu means in the heart. Nilay means our real nature.
Right. Okay. So again, the beauty of won't you say right away that body and world are really none but each other? I mean, body and world are interchangeable, actually, aren't they? Because body, world, mind, senses, everything, they're all outer objects.
They're not interchangeable, but they're all part of the same package.
Yes.
As soon as we experience ourselves as a body,
yes,
we consequently experience a world, because this body isn't floating around in space somewhere. It's a material body in a material world. And in this material body, we have material senses. We've got eyes and ears and tongue and nose and all these things. So we are through this body, we are sensing this world. Bhagavan says in verse 6 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Anubandham, sorry, verse 6 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, the world is nothing, is the 5 kinds of sense impression. Thereunto, not anything else. So, but what is the world? It's nothing but a collection of sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and tactile sensations. From these, we construct this picture of a world. So it's all, the body and world, they're all part of the same package.
Yes.
We can't experience the world without a body. We can't experience the body without thereby experiencing a world.
Yes, that's what I meant. I mean, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Again, the 5 sheets and all of that, the koshas and all that is really nothing. We don't need to even concern ourselves with any of this, because all of that is part of when we objectify, whenever mind is a bundle of thoughts, and when our thoughts go to all of these things, then we see the world, we see the body, we see projections, and all we're taken into all these by our Vishaya vasanas, by our sense impressions, and so on. But when we can have the Shanti, the peace, Shanti Madhutal, as he says in the second line, how can we cling to the peace is by clinging to ourselves. And you made a beautiful point in another satsang where you mentioned the word attention. I like that also. I like that word attention. So like even when Shalini was saying, how do we do this? In this world, we're constantly being barraged by all these different sense impression. I mean, all the world, we have a feeling that the world is imposing on us. However, I would say, won't we say that really the way we can do that constantly throughout the day is that cling to the lizard like uḍumbu, is to hold on to self-attentiveness by not forcibly, but even gently every now and then, turning our attention back within. Attention, just attention, that one spotlight, the flashlight back within the heart where it resides, within us, right?
Turning is, so long as we're facing outwards, it is
Yes.
necessary to turn. But having turned within, this is what Bhagavan emphasized, having turned within, we then need to hold on to that self-attentiveness. Otherwise,
Yes.
if we don't hold on to it like as firmly as an uḍumbu,
Mhm.
our attention again comes out, because it's the very nature of the mind to, under the sway of its vasanas, to be constantly attending to things other than itself. So we firstly, we need to turn our attention back towards ourselves and then hold on to that self-attentiveness, hold on to our being.
So in other words, stay Antarmukha and not bahirmukha.
Exactly,
Bahirmukha is
exactly.
outwardly,
Yeah,
Antarmukha is inward
exactly.
facing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, okay. All right. I think that's about it. That's all the questions I really
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
That's okay. And again, the peace that he refers to, peace, love, tranquility,
Peace is,
sat,
peace is the
is
very
nothing,
nature of our being.
ananda, the happiness, all that refers to the sat-cit. And we can cling to sat-cit, then we've got all of that, right?
Yes, yes.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Namo Bhagavata,
Namo.
Namo Ramanaya.
The next question is, this verse encourages us to cling to the self, but do we actually have the agency to do that? I'm working on understanding Bhagavan's teaching on destiny, prārabdha, karma, etc. We have the agency to turn within, and that's it. Is Bhagavan then referring to this one and only agency to turn within? And further on, could it be said that the grip, and this is not clear in the something, is the self recognizing itself, and that is no one's achievement?
Okay. Firstly, about agency. That is what Bhagavan taught about prārabdha, is everything that we are given to experience. That is all the phenomena that we are to experience, that is predetermined. So prārabdha, or destiny, determines what we are to experience. But we do have freedom of will and freedom of action. Freedom of will determines what we want to experience. Freedom of action determines what we try to experience. So we do have agency. We are constantly trying to experience things, wanting to experience things, trying to experience it. It's that wanting and trying that is creating fresh fruit, but we will later have to, that will be stored up for us to experience at some later point. So all that we are experiencing now is the fruit of our past actions. Our past action means what we did volitionally, what we tried to achieve. Whether we achieved it or not, we wouldn't have achieved it if it weren't in our prārabdha. But the very fact that we want to achieve it and we are trying to achieve it, that is what is creating the karma. So we have this freedom of will and action. Generally, we are misusing this freedom of will and action. We are wanting to experience, because we think happiness lies externally, so we want to experience the things that we think will give us happiness. If I have more money, I'll be happy. If I have more, if I have better relationships, I'll be happy. If my wife or husband or whatever were more considerate, I'll be happy. If my children were better behaved, I'll be happy. If my if I had a better job, I'd be happy. We constantly thinking that happiness will come from something external to us. If my football team win the match, if my political party win the election, if my, whatever it is, we think we associate happiness with external things. So we're constantly trying for those external things. What Bhagavan says is, whatever you're to experience, that's already predetermined. You cannot change anything that is destined to happen. You can want to change it, you can try to change it, but you cannot change it. So using our freedom of will and action to attend to anything other than ourselves, to try to experience anything other than ourselves, it's futile. It's just creating more and more karma, more and more fruit to be experienced in future. So according to Bhagavan, the only wise use of our freedom of will and action is to turn our attention back within. In order to turn our attention back within, we have to want to. So that's using our freedom of will. We must have that love to subside back into our being. And turning our attention back within, it's not actually an action, because attending to anything other than ourselves is an action. It's a mental activity. Whereas attending to ourselves is the subsidence of mental activity. But the freedom of action entails the freedom not to do anything. And in order to not do anything, we need to attend to our own being and thereby subside back into our own being. So we should have no doubt about, we do have the freedom to attend to ourselves. We do have the freedom to make the effort to attend to ourselves. So we should use that freedom wisely, because generally we're using that same freedom, instead of using it to attend to ourselves, we're using it to seek happiness in things other than ourselves. We don't stand to gain anything by seeking happiness in other things, because we're not going to experience anything that is not destined to happen. But if we seek happiness within ourselves, in our own being, that is the great gain. That is the only way to experience the infinite happiness that we actually are. So this freedom of will and action is a very precious thing, but also a very dangerous thing. If we use it incorrectly, it brings great harm to us. If we use it correctly, it can bring the supreme benefit to us. Using it correctly is using it to attend to ourselves.
There are quite a few questions on the verse. So the next one is, in our ignorance, we are used to clinging to name and form. How do we cling to sat-cit?
This we each have to find for us. It's only by trying that it becomes clear to us what actually it means. That is, if we're asked to attend to any object, it's relatively easy, because we're so used to attending to objects. So if we're asked to meditate on a picture of a god, or to meditate on some light in my heart, or an imaginary flame in my heart or something, or if we're asked to meditate on some place in the body, or to focus on our breathing, or whatever it is, it's fairly obvious. We don't have, we may not be able to do so for very long. Our mind may get distracted, but at least we grasp what it is we're to do. And to keep my mind fixed on this image of God, or on this, my breath, or this, my point between my eyebrows, or whatever. That's all relatively easy. Attending to sat-cit, to our own being, our own awareness of being, is obviously something more subtle. But it is, we all are clearly aware of our own being. We're all aware, I am. So since we're aware of our being, we can attend to our being. At first, when we try to attend to our being, it's because it's something very unfamiliar to us. we'll naturally stumble at first, but the more we try, the clearer it will become to us what Bhagavan means by self-attentiveness, what he means by attending to our own being. We can discover that only by trying. The more we try, the clearer it will become. Because the one thing that we know more clearly than any other thing is ourself, our own being. We're so clearly aware of it, but we overlook it because we're so interested in all other things, and all the things that are constantly appearing and disappearing in our awareness. But where are all these things appearing and disappearing? To whom are they all appearing or disappearing? They're appearing to me. I am the one who is aware of all these things. So what is this I? Who am I? It's not a matter of asking the question. It's a matter of investigating what we actually are by turning our attention back to that which the word I refers to, which is our own being, our own awareness of being.
Thank you, Michael. It's Tony. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, oh, that's better. There I am. Yeah.
Was that your question? Was it a clear answer?
It was my telegram to you.
Right.
I couldn't afford any more words, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yes, it's coming away from logic and concept and process, and if you say cling to yourself, your true self, then I say, well, show me and I'll cling to it, kind of thing. So it's almost a leap of consciousness,
the I which the me that says show me, that me is what you are to attend to.
Yeah. Yes. And I can see that when you maybe talk about movement in space, movement in silence, those kind of things, and even with sat-cit, I can see that, but it's not easy. One thing I was going to ask to push you on a bit more, because we seem to be cross-questioning you or cross-questioning Bhagavan on this same issue today. I think Shalini touched on rightness, and I think in page 373 of your wonderful book, you talk about rightness, and Bhagavan needed one meditation and he was finished, and where's the rest of us? I don't think we're even little buds yet. That's quite an interesting concept, the rightness as well as the practice.
Yes, but the rightness comes through the practice. We can, if you're on a journey, you can only start from the place where you are. But on a journey, you need to know the direction. You need to know what you're heading for. So Bhagavan has made it very clear what it is we are heading for. We're not heading for anything outside ourselves. We're heading for ourselves. So we are turning our attention back to ourselves. And the more we attend to ourselves, the more we progress along this path. Progressing along this path means subsiding more and more, becoming more and more willing to subside. But why we find it difficult attending to ourselves? Because attending to ourselves, it's not that we subside. I mean, we can say it. By attending to ourselves, we subside. But actually, that even to put it like that is complicating it. Attending to ourselves is subsiding. So we need to be willing to subside. We need to be willing to let go of everything else and just to sink deep back into our own being. And for that, we need to attend to ourselves, because attending to ourselves is sinking back within.
So we're ripening ourselves then.
Yeah, we are ripening ourselves, yes.
Yeah, because I mean, if you say cling to your real self, that seems further away.
Don't worry about your real self. Forget about your real self. Just cling to yourself.
Yeah,
Because
cling to yourself.
there aren't any two selves. There's not a real self and an unreal self.
Sorry, but it's I mean, expressions like self-attentiveness,
yeah,
hit home more for me than clinging to something that I'm not sure what I'm,
Yeah, but the thing is, these things cannot be, no words are adequate. But whatever words Bhagavan uses, they're pointers. So if we grasp what he says, we can understand that what he means by clinging to ourself. Clinging to ourself means attending to ourself.
Yes, that works. Yeah. Right, thank you.
The problem is we're constantly clinging to things other than ourselves. We're clinging to this body, we're clinging to the world, we're clinging to the news, the politics, the football matches, the cricket matches, the problems in office, the problems at home, all these things. We're constantly attending to these things, which are just a passing show. All these things, these things are, there's nothing is permanent. It's all phenomena are a passing show. They're constantly changing. Nothing in this world is constant. The only thing that is permanent is our own being. So that is what we need to hold on to or attend to, however you want to put it. But I mean, all these words are they're all pointing in the same direction.
So we turn towards our work in progress as best we can.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you, Michael.
And another thing, Bhagavan gave a great assurance that every moment of self-attentiveness is a step in the right direction. So we should treasure. I don't think any of us can honestly say that we are attending to ourselves throughout the waking and dream state, which is what Bhagavan is asking us to do, but we're all falling far short of that. But we should understand that every moment we are self-attentive is a step in the right direction. We are progressing along the path to the extent to which we are self-attentive. So even if we're not able to attend to ourselves all the time, we can at least attend to ourselves now and now and now and now. We should take we shouldn't worry about whether we'll be able to attend to ourselves for another 5 minutes or something. All that is in our hands is to attend to ourselves now.
Yes.
And if we so focused on ourselves now, that now continues forever. I mean, it's every moment is now when we experience it. So it's in that now that we can attend to ourselves.
Yeah, that's so helpful, Michael.
Or when all these problems are over, then I can sit down, close my eyes, and be in meditation. That doesn't work. It's here and now. Self-attentiveness cannot be in the future, because the future is just a thought. The future, if you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about something other than yourself. Where am I here and now? I am here now. So it's here and now that I have to attend to myself.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you so much, Michael.
Right.
Just a question, Michael. The way it's phrased, for example, a self-investigation, who am I really? Because, of course, the true self does not need inquiry to get there. There is nothing to inquire about there. So actually, the investigation is really sort of turning away from all the objects. I'm not this, I'm not that. Basically, I mean, that's the sensibility which emerges.
Yeah.
So the investigation is really of what I take to be I, rather than of the true I.
Well,
investigation in the sense that is what is discarded. Because we're so steeped in it that to get out of it is rather difficult. So I think Yeah, and yeah.
What we actually are doesn't need any self-investigation. That what we actually are is pure being awareness. That's immutable, always as it is. It's as ego, but we need to investigate ourselves. But what we need to investigate is we investigate ourselves. But what this ego actually is, the very being of this ego, is that sat-cit, is that pure being awareness that we actually are. So it's not that there are two selves, one self to investigate another self. We as ego need to investigate ourselves. When we investigate ourselves, we will find that if we investigate ourselves deeply enough, keenly enough, we will find that what we actually are is not this ego, but that pure being awareness.
I mean, one of the things that Bhagavan said about the self is that it's like a gooseberry in the palm of your hand, if I remember from.
Yeah, it's so clearly that is a way of expressing how clearly we're aware of ourselves. But one thing that we are always clearly aware of, more clearly than anything else, is our own being.
It's what you say about love that, because that analogy is because it's almost like the intimacy, the deepest intimacy, that which is most intimately myself.
Yeah.
I mean, self is such an objective word that is really not a very good word, because Atman is much more to do with heart and a deeper beingness, though its meaning has changed over time a great deal. But at least to us, because if you say Atman, Atma even in Hindi, it's the heart, it's below, whereas self is a very objective term. It really is not a very good word for this kind of thing.
It's the same in any language. I mean, you can also refer to the body as this is Atman.
The thing is, it's actually not like that. When I first went to SOAS and they translated Atma as self, I couldn't understand it, because as just a layperson who didn't know anything, and I was a Hindi speaker, I mean, Atma it's almost like spirit. The feeling you have if you say Atma is something deeply spiritual. It's a bit maybe like soul, not exactly actually.
Yes,
it's just heart more than anything else. Anyway,
but it's not something other than ourself. It is ourself. That Atman is not. That's why I generally avoid using this term the self, because when we say the self or the Atman, we are objectifying it. It is ourself. Atman is a word. It's actually the way it's used, it is used very similar to the way self is used in English. You can refer to the Dehatma Buddhi is taking the body to be oneself. So it is used in the, but we need to go beneath the surface of the word, whether we're using Sanskrit words or English words or Tamil words or whatever, Hindi words, whatever it is. We need to go beneath the surface of the word to understand what it is actually referring to. The word I, we are constantly using this word I to refer to this body, to this person, to this mind. But what actually does this I refer to? If we go deep into that, it actually refers just to our own being. And that our being, that is what is meant by Atman in this context. What we essentially are.
I mean, Michael, I can only say to you the words that I've grown up with, one of which was Atma, but without any Vedanta, without anything.
Yeah.
And it's a deeply spiritual term. It's a bit like the Islamic ruh. It's spirit in a way, it's heart, really.
Yes.
It's also used, it was used in Sanskrit as a reflexive, as the first person pronoun reflex, but that's really aham, but there's a reflexivity.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because, there is this thing of what is felt. It's a deeply felt experience, right? It's that deep intimacy within oneself. That's why we talk about in terms of love and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's why it's the same across all traditions, ultimately, whether it's Christianity and, so I just wanted to bring that to the fore, that we're getting at something which is deeply intimately oneself.
Yes.
It's not really self. It's it is what is most I would say it is what is most intimately myself.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
it's a kind of a feeling rather than,
But
because I
even
think
more,
the words.
even to say it's a feeling is a little bit inadequate. Truly speaking, it is the feeler. It is that which is feeling. It's
Yeah. And yet it's not
it's the
really.
knower, the experiencer, the
Yeah.
observer, whatever we want to say.
Yeah, the only thing is that the minute we use that word, we get into the subject and object, so then it
I
becomes a
know,
bit
I know. This is the whole problem. But
This is
whatever
why,
it
yeah.
is,
Anyway,
we need to go beneath we need to, that any words that are used are at best pointers, but we need to understand what they're pointing at. Ultimately, all words are inadequate. That's why Bhagavan said the ultimate teaching is silence. Because silence is the very nature of being, and that is what we actually are. So that silence alone can reveal to us the silence that we actually are. The infinite silence of pure being.
we have quite a few questions. I better get on with it.
Right.
So the question is, Bhagavan said that on a train, we trust the train conductor by just telling him where we need to arrive at. And then our only job is to sleep and wait. And it's the same with the guru and self-realization. Does that mean that praying once to Bhagavan for self-realization is enough, and we need not do anything more but wait?
Yes, we need not even pray. All we need to do is to wait, not to do anything. But how to avoid doing anything? As ego, our nature is to rise and constantly be doing things, constantly trying to achieve this or trying to achieve that. The ultimate teaching is summa iru, just be. Don't do anything, just be. But how to refrain from doing anything? How to just be? The means to just be is to attend to our being. Because attending to our being entails subsiding into our being. It is subsiding into our being. So some people who have a superficial understanding of Bhagavan's teaching, I've heard people say, even some very big names in this spiritual marketplace that is there on the internet nowadays. Some people say that self-inquiry is not Bhagavan's ultimate teaching. His ultimate teaching is just be. Or his ultimate teaching is silence, however they word it. That is a fundamental misunderstanding, because self-inquiry or self-investigation means attending to our being. And attending to our being is itself subsiding back into our being. So we cannot just be without attending to ourselves. So long as we're attending to anything other than ourselves, we are not just being, we are rising. That is, being is always there. There's never a moment when we are not being, but we are superimposed on that being is this rising of ego. That is the root of all the problem. So to bring about the subsidence of ego, the means is for us as ego to attend to our being and thereby subside back into our being. We cannot attend to our being without thereby subsiding, because they're one and the same thing. And subsiding, when we subside, we remain as just being.
Lasya?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, it's my first class to join, so I wasn't sure whether you were reading the chat or not. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
No worries, just to clear up.
Michael, my question is, so on attending to the self, I think in my understanding, this is from my personal experience, it just becomes a little bit easier when I'm meditating, specifically sitting for meditation, because then I'm drawing myself away from all thoughts, away from all objects. I'm closing my eyes, so I'm shutting down from all the external world. So sometimes it becomes, maybe I can see a glimpse of what it means to be self. I'm not really sure whether it is self or not, but I can see there's like lots of peace. So maybe it might be called self. I'm not too sure. But what Bhagavan is saying in this verse is like ever abidance, like every minute, every second, maybe just be with self. So apart from meditation, when I'm not doing the sitting meditation, let's say when I'm doing some chores, is what does it look like when you're saying abiding with self, when you're doing something actively, engaging with something? Because there is an object very closely to you, isn't it? Let's say I'm chopping vegetables, you're completely engaging with the vegetable. Just engaging with the knife and vegetable. So does it mean just being one with the task you're doing? Is it same as being one with self?
No, because tasks are things that appear and disappear. The one who is experiencing that task, the one who is aware of that, is yourself. That is what we need to attend to. That's why Bhagavan often expressed in a form of investigating to whom. Whatever we are experiencing, you say the vegetables are very close. What is even closer from the vegetables? What is closer to you than any other thing is yourself. So it's ourself we have to attend to, our own being. So if you find it beneficial to sit in meditation, that is fine. But we shouldn't stop with that. Because are you aware of yourself only when you sit with your eyes closed? No, you're aware of yourself. You said, I am cooking, I am cutting vegetables, I am doing chores. So that I is the common thread throughout all experience, whatever we may be experiencing, whether a pleasant experience, an unpleasant experience, a neutral experience, all experience. There cannot be experience without an experiencer. That experiencer is I. That is what we need to attend to. We need to think deeply about this to understand what Bhagavan is talking about. So we are not, our attention is only to be, not to be on any phenomenon of any kind whatsoever, not on any activity, not on anything that appears or disappears, only on that which is the constant background to all these things. Bhagavan sometimes used the analogy of the cinema screen. When you go to a cinema and you watch a film, we're sitting there for 3 hours. If we come away, it's as if we've not seen a screen at all, because all we've been seeing is the pictures on the screen. But you can't see the pictures on the screen without seeing the screen. So we can't have any experience without experiencing, I am experiencing this. Of course, the thought I am experiencing, that is not there. But the actual experience of the essential form of any experience is, I am experiencing this. So who is that I? Who is that experiencer? What is that awareness that is aware of all these things? What is that awareness in whose view all these things appear and disappear. That awareness to whom all these things appear and disappear. These are all just saying the same thing in different words. That is what we have to attend to.
So are you saying maybe people talk about being in flow state? So there's like pure consciousness. Are you saying that is different from being I?
Sorry, I didn't catch the word you said. Being fluted, you said?
Sorry. People talk about being in flow state.
Flow
When you
state.
do some, is that?
Yeah. Okay. Flow state is when you're completely absorbed in the activity you're doing.
Yeah.
Some people say that in flow state there's no I. But that's absurd. They can't. Who is experiencing that flow state? So there can't be any. Flow state is just a particular type of experience when you're completely absorbed in some activity of one kind or another. But this is we can say the opposite of flow state, because in flow state, you're so absorbed in what you're doing that you overlook the one who is experiencing it, the awareness that is aware of it. So our aim is to be so absorbed in the awareness rather than anything that we're aware of. So we are. This is why Bhagavan often uses the term turning back to face ourselves. I don't know if you're familiar with. I assume you're familiar with words Antarmukha and Ahamukha. Sorry, Antarmukha and bahirmukha. Antarmukha means facing within.
Yeah.
And bahirmukha means facing outwards. Everything, all phenomena are outwards. What is inwards is only ourself. Anything that appears or disappears is something outward. It's something other than ourself. Because to whom does it appear and disappear? To me. So we need to be facing inwards, facing back towards ourself. The flow state is a state of extremely focused bahirmukha, outward facing. We need to be extremely focused inward facing. Inward means back towards ourself, our own being. Attending to thoughts, attending to feelings, attending to reactions, all these are bahirmukha. They're all facing outwards. Anything that is impermanent is something other than ourself, because the one permanent thing in our experience is ourself, our own being. All other things appear and disappear.
Thank you.
Is that a little bit clearer?
Yes. I mean, it definitely takes, as you said, practice, isn't it? If I once maybe have a glimpse of I when I'm not sitting in meditation, when I'm doing something, because I'm trying like constantly to see what it is, maybe then I'll understand more. But
even to say, even this term a glimpse is a little bit misleading, because you can glimpse something other than yourself, but we're talking about yourself, the one thing that you always know. So rather than talking about a glimpse of I, it's a clarity of I. That clarity is what the reason that we're lacking clarity, because we're constantly attending to other things. So we're overlooking ourselves. The more we attend to ourselves, the greater clarity of self-awareness we have. That clarity of self-awareness is what Bhagavan described as spurana, aham spurana. Aham Sphurana literally means the clear shining of I. People have all sorts of imagination about what this Sphurana is. They're looking for some Sphurana. We're not to look for some Sphurana. It's the one. I is the one thing that is shining constantly. I is the light of awareness that illumines all other things. But because we are attending to the other things instead of a light that is illumining them, namely our own awareness, our own being, we lack a clarity of self-awareness. The more we attend to ourselves, the more, the greater the clarity. So what we are seeking is not a glimpse, we're seeking a clarity.
Yes.
And that clarity deepens with practice.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you're not looking for anything that you don't know already. Bhagavan said, if jnana was some new knowledge to be attained, whatever comes has to go. So what was the use of gaining some new knowledge? Because the very fact that you've gained it means one day you're surely going to lose it. Jnana is the ever-shining awareness of our own being. Jnana is what is shining as I. And that alone is what is real.
Is a good practice as we go through various experiences in life to remind ego to witness and remain in now with no resistance to the current episode?
All episodes happen in the flow of time. So when we are attending to episodes, attending to whatever is happening, we are caught up in the flow of time and are not truly in the present. What is ever present, the one thing that is ever present, is the presence of ourself, the presence of I. So if we really want to be in the present moment, we have to attend to I. If we attend to anything other than I, we are caught up in the flow of time. Because if we just think about a little bit deeply about what time is, there are 3 times, past, present, and future. What is the present? It is that infinitesimally fine interface between past and future. That is a moment before, a split second, a millisecond, a nanosecond before is past. A nanosecond ahead is future. So the present the present has no duration. All things that happen, in order for something to happen, it requires some duration, some time in which it is to happen. In the exact present moment, there is no happening, there is only being. So to really be in the present moment, we need to be in our being. In other words, we need to attend to ourselves. So long as we're attending to anything other than ourselves, we are caught up in the flow of time, and we are. Who is the one who is aware of the appearance of other things? It's only as ego that we're aware of the appearance of other things. So by witnessing anything other than ourselves, we are reinforcing or perpetuating this this appearance of ego, the appearance of ourself as ego. So what we need to witness is not anything other than ourselves. We need to witness the witness. In other words, we need to turn our attention away from other things back towards ourselves. This word witness it's a very, when sastras, when the ancient texts talk about witness, they do so for a very specific purpose. That purpose is often lost. People fail to understand why it is pointed out that we have a witness. What it means, well, the word, again, there's another confusion because the term sakshi or witness is used in different sense in different contexts. So Bhagavan broke it down very simply. He said the word sakshi is used can be understood in two senses. In some contexts, sakshi means the observer, the knower, the seer. In other contexts, when, for example, it is said that Brahman is Sarva-sakshi, the witness of all, or Jiva-sakshi, the witness of the Jiva, there it doesn't mean that Brahman is aware, is the observer of these things. It means Brahman is the presence in which these things happen. So in the deeper sense, Bhagavan said, Sakshi means sanadi. That is, witness means presence. That's a very deep sense. In the more superficial sense, witness means the observer, the knower, the seer. In other words, ego. So if the reason ego is referred to as the witness is because when we start off on this path, we need what is called Dṛg-dṛśya-vivēka. That is, we need to distinguish the seer from the seen, the knower from the known, the experiencer from the experienced. So the ego, the experiencer, the knower, the seer, is something distinct from everything that it knows, because whatever it knows, whatever it experiences, whatever it sees, are things that appear and disappear in its view. Since they appear and disappear in its view, there must be something other than it. So in this way, we need to distinguish ourselves as a knower from everything that is known. The knower, another term for the knower is witness. So it is said you are the witness of all this. When it is said you are a witness, people failing to understand that the aim of that, the purpose of that term, is to turn our attention back to ourselves. It is to help, we are told that we have a witness to help us to understand the distinction between ourselves and all other things. And once we've understood that distinction, what do we need to attend to? We need to attend to ourselves. If we think, oh, I have to witness everything, we miss the point, because then our attention is on what is being witnessed rather than on the one who is witnessing. So the one who is witnessing is what we need to attend to. That's why I say what we need to witness is the witness. What we need to see is the seer. What we need to experience is the experiencer. What we need to know is the knower. These all different ways of saying the same thing. We need to know ourselves. We need to be aware of that which is aware. We're always aware of that which is aware, but we're generally negligently aware of it. We need to be attentively aware of that which is aware. In other words, we need to be attentively self-aware. Self-awareness is always there. It's the background of, we can't be aware of anything else without being aware of ourselves as one who is aware of it. But because we're so interested in other things, our attention goes out to them and we overlook ourselves. So the term witness is a term that is used to help us to draw our attention back to ourselves.
Michael, can I give an example?
Yes.
I am thoroughly drawn to Bhagavan's teaching and the knowledge. If I have a wife who's a very devout Christian who says, "Oh, this is going to take you to hell," but I love her deeply, I simply don't agree with what she's saying. So I only have the option of witnessing what's happening right now without resistance. I can't say, no, I don't love her and I want a divorce because she thinks I'm going to hell or for trusting Bhagavan. But the only thing I have left is to just say, well, okay, I can witness this and not resist it because apparently this is something I need to experience with my prārabdha. I don't know if that's a good example, but
Yeah, okay, I get you. When you say you need to witness it, yes, or whatever we're experiencing, whatever is given to us to experience in accordance with our destiny, whether we're aware of it or not, we're witnessing it all. But what we need to do is to step back. The trouble is when we are aware of things, we become caught up in them because we seem to be a part of the picture that we're aware of. That is, this body and mind that we take ourselves to be are phenomena. So we are identifying ourselves with part of the with part of the picture that we are witnessing. So we need to be aware of ourselves as not as this body and mind that we seem to be, but as the awareness that is aware of these things. In other words, we have to be aware of the witness. So we shouldn't be, in order to detach ourselves from all these things, we need to try to turn our attention back to ourselves. The more we turn our attention back to ourselves, the more we are detaching ourselves, separating ourselves from all that we are destined to experience. Is that a clear answer?
yes, it is. It just it seems to work for me to just
That
focus
is,
on
I understand what you're saying. Certainly it is to be, when things are happening, if we can step back a little, it helps create a certain detachment. So in that sense, witnessing things, if we understand it correctly, can be by considering ourselves as a witness of these things, we are detaching ourselves from what we are experiencing. That is beneficial, but that's only the first step. The important step, or the really useful step, is to then turn our attention back to that witness. Who is this I that is aware of, that is witnessing this, that is aware of this? Who is this witness to whom all these things appear?
and that's where the lack of resistance comes in. Just
Yes, exactly. The more we attend to our own being, the less we will be inclined to resist anything.
okay, thank you.
Resisting ultimately is futile because whatever's going to be is going to be. And so Bhagavan has given us the perfect solution to all problems. But we just need to have the conviction and the courage to put what he's taught us into practice by trying more and more to turn our attention back towards ourselves and thereby detach ourselves from everything else, including this person we seem to be. Or not just including, first and foremost, detaching ourselves from this person. If we can detach ourselves from this person, we need not detach ourselves from anything else. Because it's only through this person that we seem to be that we experience all these attachments to other things. So long as we experience ourselves as this person, attachments are inevitable. So to be free of attachments, we need to detach ourselves from this person we seem to be. And we detach ourselves from this person by turning our attention back towards ourselves.
Thank you, Michael.
Right. And
I think a question is basically, how can you make an effort in something like self-inquiry if you're unable to be spontaneous in doing it and pursuing it in a spontaneous way because you're quite sort of bogged down in a way with everyday life, perhaps looking for jobs or doing applications and so on. Yes, when there's a lack of the spontaneity and when perhaps one's actions are driven by a feeling of fear and so on. So if one is in that kind of a state, then how can we more spontaneously go in for self-inquiry? I hope this is right, Erica, because you wanted me to rephrase it.
in the case of Bhagavan, when that fear of death came to him, his spontaneous reaction was to turn back within. Because through practice in previous lives, his Vishaya vasanas were very, very much attenuated. So he was able to spontaneously turn his attention back to himself. For most of us, our spontaneous reaction is to get carried away by vasanas. So nobody can start this path we have to start with effort. It is not spontaneous. The very nature of mind or ego is to go outwards, to cling to things other than itself. As Bhagavan says in verse 25 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, grasping form, it comes into being. Grasping form, it stands. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly. Leaving form, it grasps form. So the very nature of ego is to constantly grasp or cling to things other than itself. So we can't, if we wait for the day when we spontaneously turn our attention back to ourselves, we'll be waiting for all eternity. So we shouldn't expect that this is going to be spontaneous. We have to make effort. We have to try again. And we will fail again. Doesn't matter. So long as we're trying, we're moving in the right direction. So we need not. It's misleading to think that this is something that needs to happen spontaneously. It needs to happen with effort. Eventually, once we have practiced and practiced enough, it'll become spontaneous. But that's right at the end of the path, not at the beginning of the path.
Yes. So sir, you often say two phrases, needs to be done and ought to be done. Needs to be done, ought to be done. What is the difference between that?
It depends on the context in which it's being used. I think it's more or less the same. Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but it's in most contexts, it's more or less the same. Ought to suggest some obligation. I need to go to the shop to buy some rice. You're not going because of any obligation. You're going because you want some rice. I ought to say some kind words to this person. There it's more of an obligation. So there's a slight difference, but whether we say we ought to attend to ourselves or need to attend to ourselves, they both amount to the same thing. We need to attend to ourselves because if we want to be happy, there's no other way. But I mean, if we want to be really, truly happy, infinitely happy, we need to attend to ourselves. So, but you can also say ought to, but ought to has a slight more sense of obligation.
Sense of duty.
Yeah, duty, yeah.
So that's one, sir. Second, sir, I have a personal question for you. When you talk this much about Bhagavan's teachings, what happens to your practice of uninterrupted self-attentiveness? Does it still go on with your talking, or does it stop?
That's a big assumption on your part, but my self-attentiveness is uninterrupted. We are all on the same path. We are all trying to be self-attentive as much as possible. At least when we're talking about Bhagavan's teachings, we are thereby reminding ourselves of this need. So this we can say can be, not necessarily is, but if we use it properly, it can be an aid to being self-attentive. But we can be talking about Bhagavan's teachings and not at all attending to ourselves. So it's very easy to talk about these things, but we need to put them into practice. We ought to put them into practice.
You seem to be in a flow, as the girl was just now saying. When you speak about Bhagavan's teachings,
yes,
you seem to be in some sort of a divine flow.
Yes.
So that divine flow, do you consciously attend to yourself and talk, or you just leave yourself free?
I should be, I ought to be attending to myself, but I can't say that I always am. That is all we can do, is try to be self-attentive as much as possible. I don't think any of us are holding on to self-attentiveness uninterruptedly. And if we are, it's a very, very, I mean, we should be. That's what we're trying to work towards. But it takes constant and persistent practice.
So, sir, I had written an email. Shall I ask that question now or later, Shalini? Small question was there.
You may as well ask it now.
Yeah, sure,
Just
sir.
ask now.
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure, sir. So, sir, Bhagavan says in verse 487 of Guru Vācaka Kōvai, unconditionally place your mind at the feet of the Lord, who has Shakti on his left. Could you please explain this concept of Lord's Shakti being on his left? Why is a particular place assigned to Shakti in the body?
Okay. This is referring to Hindu iconography. That is, do you know what I mean by Ardhanarishwara?
Yes, sir.
Ardhanarishwara, right half is Shiva, left half is Shakti. Ardhanarishwara depicts the oneness of Shiva and Shakti. That is, God and his power are not two, they are one and the same. So here, this term is used. Murugan is writing poetry. So in poetry, you need to have words to fit the poetic meter. So there are so many ways of referring to God. This is just one way of referring to God. In the context of this verse, it is the fact that this term is used is not of any great significance. The term itself is not of any great significance. And actually the word in the verse, the translation you're referring to is the old translation that Sadhu Om and I did. It is, it's conveying the general sense, but it's not the exact meaning of the word, of the verse. The words that are used is Matu or Bhagan. Bhagan is a Tamil personal form of the Sanskrit word bhaga. Bhaga means a part. So the one who has a mother as a part of him, Matu means mother, referring to Shakti. So the one for whom the mother is a part. But it's just a poetic way of expressing it. What it's referring to is the one God. I mean, whether you call that one God Shiva or Vishnu or Aruṇācala or Bhagavan Ramana or Bhagavan Krishna or Rama or Jesus or whatever, but the names don't matter. All those names are referring to the one Lord who is ever shining in our heart as I.
Oh, so this left or right doesn't make any difference here.
In this context, it doesn't. There's not even the word left here. It's not even there. But this is a description of Ardhanarishwara. So we can say, I mean, it's not wrong to introduce the word left there, because in the form of Ardhanarishwara, it's the left half that is the mother, and the right half is the father, Shiva and Shakti. And generally in temples, if you go to a Shiva temple, the main shrine will be Shiva, and to the left of that shrine is the mother shrine. But if you go to for example, if you go to Meenakshi temple in Madurai, that is in most temples, in most Shiva temples, Shiva is the Lord, and the mother is his consort. In the case of Meenakshi temple, Meenakshi is the main deity, and her consort is Chokanatan, a name of Shiva. So in Meenakshi temple, Meenakshi shrine is in the center, and Chokanatan, Lord Shiva, is on her left side. So, I mean, these are all, there's no, none of these things are firm. Very different iconographies, just like there's so many different gods. What is the significance for all these different gods? That what God actually is beyond all names and forms. But our mind cannot conceive of that nameless and formless infinite reality. So for us, he appears in different names and forms to suit people. Some people are attracted to a form of Rama, some people to the form of Krishna, some people to the form of Ramana. All these are different names and forms of the one reality. And there's a whole elaborate, I mean, the iconography, there's so many, I mean, probably someone who's an expert in iconography could tell you more about the significance of right and left in this case. We need not be concerned about all these things. They all have some significance, but for us, the main thing is, well, what the main message of this verse is that we need to unconditionally surrender ourselves.
That is clear, sir. On the topic of iconography, in the pictures of Durga, she is shown with a tiger or a lion as her
Yes.
vehicle. And in the case of Shiva, I think he's shown within bull.
Yes.
So those are also part of the iconography. So what significance do they have?
There's a verse in Guru Vācaka Kōvai where Bhagavan says that all these different forms of God and all the different vahanas, these are to teach us to respect all forms of life. Subramania's vahana is a peacock. Ganapati, who's got a big elephant head, who is his vahana? A little mouse. So all these things are, and Vishnu's vahana is a Garuda. So but all these are intended to teach us to respect all life forms. Because the same God who is shining in our heart as our own being is shining in the heart of every sentient being as their own being. As Bhagavan says, Ariyatita Rajivara Dahavari Jagohail Arivairami Paramatman Aruṇācala Ramaṇan. Aruṇācala Ramaṇan is that Paramatma that blissfully exists as awareness in the cave of the heart lotus of all different jivas, beginning with Hari. So from the highest God, Lord Vishnu himself, down to the most insignificant insect, in the heart of all, that which is shining is Aruṇācala Ramana. Krishna says exactly the same in the Gita. Ahamatma Gudikesha. I am the Atma. Oh, Gudikesha, I am the Atma in the heart of all living beings. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end. So all these different iconographies and everything, they're all pointing us to the presence of the one omnipresent, supreme reality that is shining in the heart of each and every one of us as our own being.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The question is it a good practice as we go through various experiences in life to remind ego to witness and remain in the now with no resistance to the current episode?
It may, yes. I mean, these are all good practices, but this isn't the practice taught by Bhagavan. The practice taught by Bhagavan is whatever experiences are there, no experience can appear without an experiencer. What we should be attending to is not to what is experienced, but to the one who is experienced. In other words, we should attend not to what is being witnessed, but to the one who is the witness of it all. That isn't to put down any other practices, but this is the ultimate practice. This is the most efficacious practice. By considering oneself to be the witness of all the experiences of life, to a certain extent, we are able to, or we may be able to step back and detach ourselves to a limited extent. But if we want to detach ourselves completely from everything, we, the one who is witnessing all these things, the one who is aware of all these things, need to subside. And in order to subside, we need to attend to ourselves. So as I said earlier, the most effective of all practices is to witness the witness. That is the path taught by Bhagavan. Witness the witness means attend to ourselves. Be self-attentive. cling to ourselves as firmly as an uḍumbu.
The next question is, if I do not attend to anything, does that mean I'm abiding in myself?
No. If we're really not attending to anything, we will subside in a state of laya, like sleep. What happens when we fall asleep? We are too tired to continue attending to this world, so we withdraw our attention from everything else and we subside back into sleep. But because we subside in sleep, we subside into sleep because of tiredness. If we subside into a state, sleep is what is called a state of manolaya. Manolaya means a state of mental dissolution of the mind, like sleep, like swoon, coma, general anesthesia. All these are different states of manolaya. Our aim is not manolaya, because manolaya is a temporary dissolution of mind. Our aim is manonasa, which is, manonasa means annihilation or destruction of the mind. In other words, the permanent dissolution of the mind. That is what we're aiming for. Manolaya is brought about by any means other than self-attentiveness. That if the dissolution of the mind is brought about by any means other than self-attentiveness, the resulting dissolution will be manolaya, it will be temporary. So, for example, in the case of sleep, we fall asleep because of tiredness. We're just too tired to continue attending to other things. In the case of a swoon, it may be because of some shock. Our mind withdraws back within and we subside. In the case of general anesthesia, it's because of some drugs that are administered. In the case of coma, it may be because of some accident, some head injury or something. In the case of kevala nirvikalpa samadhi, it's because of some yogic practices, restraining the breath or whatever. These are all different things that have the effect of making our attention withdraw from everything else. But that is not the same as self-attentiveness. In order to bring about the permanent dissolution of mind, in other words, manonasa, destruction of mind, the only means is self-attentiveness. Because mind or ego is a false awareness of ourself. It's awareness of ourself as something other than what we actually are. That is, as ego or mind, we're always aware of ourselves as I am this body. That is a false awareness of ourself. The way to get rid of a false awareness is correct awareness. So in order to destroy this mistaken awareness of ourself, we need to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. In order to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we need to attend to ourselves. That is why self-attentiveness is the only means by which we can bring about manonasa. Other practices are all good, they're all leading in the right direction, but in order to achieve manonasa, finally we have to turn our attention back towards ourselves. So merely withdrawing our attention from other things is insufficient. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. As we can see, I mean, the sleep is the obvious example. When we fall asleep, we withdraw our attention from everything else and we subside. But because we subsided, dissolved back into the state of sleep without attending to ourselves, we rise again. That is why Bhagavan emphasized this distinction between nasa and manolaya. In verse 13 of Upadēśa Undiyār, he said that which is in dissolution of mind is of two kinds, laya and nasa. That which is dissolved in laya will rise again. If its form dies, that means if it dissolves in nasa, it will not rise again. So the difference between manolaya and manonasa, manolaya is temporary, manonasa is permanent. And then in the next verse he says, the mind that will subside or dissolve by means of breath control, pranayama, only if that mind is sent on the worry, the path of investigation, will its form die. So if we're able to, withdrawing our attention from other things in meditation is not an easy thing. The whole science of yoga is all, and the main technique is using breath control as a means to bring about this nirvikalpa samadhi, which is essentially not different to sleep. But both of them are temporary states of dissolution of mind. But that is not our aim. Our aim is the permanent dissolution of mind, which can be achieved only by self-knowledge. And self-knowledge can be achieved only by self-attentiveness. To see something, we must look at it. To know something, we must attend to it. To see what we actually are, we need to look at ourselves. We need to attend to ourselves.
The next question. I feel inertia and thus am identified with darkness. Letting go of darkness, inertia drops off.
Mind has said to be three gunas, three qualities, we can say, of the mind. That is the sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is the state of clarity, calmness, and peace. Rajas is the state of restlessness and activity. Tamas is the state of dullness, inertia, lethargy, and so on. These states of mind tend to, they fluctuate. That is, when we're about to fall asleep, we're generally in a state of tamas and we fall asleep. When we get up in the morning, at first we may, for a brief time, we'll be in a calm state. That is a state of sattva. But sooner or later, we have to engage in activity, and we rise and we have to get up and do things. So these three gunas are constantly in flux. In order to follow this path, we want that is when the mind is in a very dull, lethargic state, a tamasic state, of trying to be self-attentive. Bhagavan said it's like trying to separate the fine threads of a silk cloth with a blunt crowbar, an iron bar. A blunt iron bar. Obviously, it's very difficult to separate the fine threads of a silk cloth with a blunt iron bar. And he said, trying to attend to oneself when the mind is in a in a rajasic state is like trying to find a very small object that has fallen in the ground using the light of a lamp that is flickering in the wind. It's not very helpful. So the best condition for self-attentiveness is a sattvic mind. So does that mean we have to wait till the mind is in a sattvic condition in order to attend to ourselves? No. Because attending to ourselves will calm down the restless activity of the mind. It will clarify and dissolve the tamas. So self-attentiveness is a state of sattva. So if you want to, a sattvic state of mind, in order to attend to yourself, the means to achieve that sattvic state of mind is to attend to yourself. So even if the mind is in a rajasic state or a tamasic state, it may be a bit more difficult to start with, but we can bring the mind back to a sattvic state by attending to ourselves.
How can we get a deep conviction that not paying attention to external phenomena, which hit us constantly in the face, causes them to disappear, not because we ignore them and they are still somewhere there in the background, but that they really disappear because we stop projecting them, redirecting our attention towards ourselves? Will it become increasingly clear when we go deeper in self-inquiry, or does it require a leap of faith?
We need to, that is, to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we are thereby withdrawing our attention from other things. But other things don't disappear entirely until ego subsides entirely. That is, to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we thereby subside. And to the extent to which we subside, our attention is withdrawn from other things. Everything else will cease to exist only when ego subsides completely, when ego dissolves completely. This happens every night when we fall asleep. Ego dissolves completely. But as I just explained, because we fall asleep because of tiredness, not because of self-attentiveness, the mind rises again. So sleep is just a temporary dissolution of mind. But when we fall asleep, the world completely disappears. There's no world at all. When we rise again in the morning, when we rise again as ego, we project a body which we take to be ourselves, and we project the world. So long as as ego is not dissolved, so long as ego has risen, it is experiencing itself as a body. And that body is a part of the world. So we can say, okay, only the things that I'm aware of at this moment are what are actually existing, or not even what are currently seeming to exist. But it's not quite as simple as that, because when we, at any moment in the waking or dream state, we're only aware of a tiny fraction of this world. But though we're not attending to the rest of the world, this little bit of the world that we're now attending to that is, we have a mental framework in our mind. We have a background idea of a vast universe, which stretches for billions of light years. It's inconceivably vast universe, and inconceivably long duration of time. So we don't know the beginning of time, we don't know the end of time. We don't know the beginning of the universe or the end of the universe. It all seems very vast. That idea that we are existing in a vast space and a vast time is part of the framework in which our immediate experience appears. So though we are not aware of, we're not now aware of things outside our range of view, but we're not thinking about, we may not be thinking about, but Moscow is the capital of Russia, or Washington is the capital of the United States. We may not constantly think about that, but that's there in the background. We have that sort of knowledge. We know, we learnt in school, and we read in the news constantly about these places. We may never have visited them, but it's all there as part of the framework. So when we see a little bit of the world, we in the background of our mind, we've got an idea of a whole world. This planet and other planets and stars and solar systems and galaxies and all these things. These are all part of the framework. So these all seem to exist, even if we're not immediately aware of them. They seem to be there, at least in the background of our mind, so long as we rise as ego. So it's only when ego subsides completely but all idea of this universe goes. As we conceive it, for example, when we fall asleep. But we do know from our experience in sleep, the seeming existence of all these things depend upon us as ego. It's only when we rise as ego, but this vast universe seems to exist. So, because all these things seem to exist only in the view of ego, our aim is to cut at the root of these things. In other words, to bring about the dissolution of ego. So, as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, if ego comes into being, everything comes into being. If ego is not, everything is not. So all these things depend, but the seeming existence of this vast universe depends upon the seeming existence of ourself as ego. And therefore Bhagavan says in the third sentence, ahandeya yavamam, ego itself is everything. That is just like when we dream at night, what we are seeing a body for ourselves and a vast universe and so many things happening and all these things. What is it that we are seeing as all these things? These things don't actually exist, but they seem to exist. We are seeing ourselves. The mind is seeing itself as the dream world. So Bhagavan says ego itself is everything. That means that all this vast universe we see, it is we as ego are seeing ourselves as all these things. And then he says, therefore, investigating what this is giving up everything. That is, when he says investigating what this is, this refers to ego. So if we investigate ego will thereby subside. And to the extent that ego subsides, everything else will subside along with it. So if we investigate ourselves keenly enough, this ego will dissolve forever back into its source, into the being from which it arose, and everything else will dissolve along with it. But during the practice of self-attentiveness, we are not actually going so deep. So to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, our attention is thereby withdrawn from everything else. So they recede into the background of our awareness, so to speak. That we don't need a conviction. We can see from our own experience. We don't even have to be practicing self-attentiveness. We can see it from other things. If you're watching a very interesting film on the television, you're not aware of the other things around you. Yes, everything seems to be still there, but your attention is not on it. Your attention is on the film. So it's like that with anything. To the extent to which we attend to one thing, our attention is thereby withdrawn from other things. So in the case of self-attentiveness, our attention is focused on ourselves and thereby withdrawn from everything else. So relatively speaking, other things recede into the background. But we don't, during practice, we don't, as a general rule, completely cease to be aware of other things. We're still aware of our body, which may be sitting in a chair or walking or whatever, we're still aware of the surroundings and things to some extent, but the more we attend to ourselves, the more the other things seem to recede into the background. That is, we're not, because we're focusing on one thing, we cease to be aware of other things. But so until ego dissolves entirely, the other things do seem to exist. I mean, maybe only a tiny fraction of our attention is on the body or other things, but so long as we have a fraction of our attention on anything other than ourselves, the whole thing seems to exist. So it doesn't require a deep leap of faith or a deep conviction. We just need to observe how attention works. To the extent to which we attend to anything, our attention is thereby withdrawn from other things, so they recede into the background, so to speak. The same with self-attentiveness. If we go deep enough into self-attentiveness, we will finally dissolve completely back into our own being, and when we as ego dissolve permanently, everything else dissolves permanently. I hope that's a clear answer to that question.
The next question is, what does it really mean when it is said that pure consciousness is infinite but not vast?
Infinite means without any limits. Limits of any kind whatsoever, not only limits in space or limits in time, any kind of limit. There's absolutely no limit at all. If it is said that pure consciousness is not vast, I think the idea there is trying to emphasize that pure consciousness is vastness is a measure of size. In some Upanishad or somewhere, it is said that Brahman or Chaitanya, pure consciousness or whatever, is bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest. What does that mean? It is beyond this pair of opposites of big and small, vast and minute. It's beyond all these differences, because all these differences, the differences in size of vast or minute, these differences appear only in the mind. So it's only in the mind that we can talk about, we can say the universe is vast, or certain things within the universe. Compared to this earth, the sun is vast. It's much, much bigger than this earth. So these are all relative terms, and they all have meaning in relation to other things. We can say, for example, Russia is a vast country. Compared to Russia, there are so many small countries. In Europe, Luxembourg, for example, is a tiny country compared to Russia, so vast and small. These all differences concerning phenomena. Pure consciousness is the reality that is beyond the mind, in which all these differences appear. So I think that's the idea. I don't know where it is said, but pure consciousness is infinite but not vast, but that's how I would understand it. Since vastness, size is a relative term, it is finite. But that which is infinite is beyond all such differences.
Yeah, the next question, it says, and a seemingly silly question, which I find quite disturbing. Where is our mind, for which our brain is just an interface and the body is contained within it?
Okay, there's a simple answer to this. The whole of the physical universe, which is called in Sanskrit Buddhakasha, the physical universe, what is the space in which this physical space is contained? The physical space is contained within the mind space. The whole universe is in our mind, because the universe is just an idea in our mind. So the whole universe is, the physical space is contained within the mind space. And what is the space in which the mind space is contained? It is the Chittakasha, the consciousness space. Chittakasha, sorry. The mind is called Manakasha or Chittakasha. That is the Akasha of the Chitta. The Akasha means space, Chitta means mind. But the space in which that mind space is contained is the Chiddakasha, the space of pure consciousness, which is infinite. So everything is, there cannot be anything outside the infinite. There cannot be anything other than the infinite. Because if there was anything other than the infinite, it would be, the infinite would thereby be finite. So there can't be anything other than the infinite. So whatever seems to exist must seem to exist only in that infinite space of pure consciousness. But since all this physical world appears only in the mind, it is said the physical space is contained in the mind space, and the mind space is contained in the space of pure consciousness.
There are two questions from one person. They've just come in. I would be deeply grateful if you could ask these questions that I have been facing during the practice of self-abiding. First question is, while practicing self-abidance, at times there is activity, sounds, sights, etc. Yet it is all our own self, yourself, perceived as your own activity. Is that the correct understanding?
Ultimately, yes, but whatever appears cannot be anything other than ourself. But so long as other things appear, we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are. Because what we actually are is one infinite, indivisible awareness. But all these phenomena, they're many, they're finite, and they're all, each one is separate from every other one. So they all seem to be, it's all divided up. So nothing is other than ourselves, but so long as we're aware of multiplicity, of separation, so long as there's a subject-object experience, a knower and things that are known, we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are. So when we're practicing self-attentiveness or whatever, we're not to be concerned about other things. That is, whatever other things are there, to whom do they appear? To me. We turn our attention back towards ourselves, the one to whom all other things appear. So we try to keep our attention fixed on ourselves, unmindful of other things. Other things don't immediately disappear just because we're attending to ourselves, but to the extent to which we are self-attentive, other things recede into the background of our awareness, so to speak. So our aim is to focus more and more on ourselves, to be more and more keenly self-attentive, more and more deeply self-attentive, and not to concern ourselves with other things at all. Because so long as we have any concern about anything else, our attention is on that. So, as Bhagavan said, there's a sentence in the 6th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār in which he says, however many thoughts arise, so what? As and when each thought arises, we need to turn our attention back to ourselves. We need to investigate, to whom does it arise? Investigating to whom it arises means turning our attention back towards ourselves, the one to whom all other things appear.
The next question. Yet at other times, thoughts, more than sound, sight, etc., have a strong sense of I. This is me. And at other times, they go into a mind attack and repeat themselves obsessively. Could you please give advice on how to deal with these times?
That is what Bhagavan advised us is whatever happens, whatever appears, whatever is experienced, none of these things can be experienced except, I mean, they're all experienced only in our view. It's only to us that all these things appear. So what Bhagavan's recommendation for how to deal with any type of experience is to investigate to whom is this experience? Who is the experiencer? Who am I? That doesn't mean asking the question. That means turning our attention back to ourselves, the one to whom all these experiences appear.
So the next question, I think this is the last question. In verse 7 of Śrī Aruṇācala Padigam, Bhagavan says in the first clause from your explanatory paraphrase, if bhutas, that is the 5 elements, namely space, air, fire, water, and earth, and bhautika, that is everything composed of these elements, which spread out, expand, or unfold as many living beings, do not exist beside you, the space of light, namely pure awareness, who else am I other than you? Does Bhagavan imply in this verse that whatever we perceive, including all the living beings, including the body consisting of 5 sheets that we as ego take ourselves to be, are composed of 5 elements which are jata? I understand Bhagavan says in the 7th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār that what actually exists is only Atma-swarupa and Aruṇācala, and also says this waking life is nothing but a dream, implying that all that we perceive is unreal. What I'm specifically trying to understand is the part where he says, composed of 5 elements, which spread out as all living beings. Could you please explain a bit more of the implications on this, if time permits?
Okay, this is that is nowadays people, when they hear about 5 elements, the people who've had a modern education and learnt a little bit of chemistry will say, oh no, there aren't 5 elements, there are 100 and who knows how many. I mean, I think it used to be 97 and then they found a few more. This is using the term element in a different sense. But in older cultures, in many parts of the world, not only in India, but in Europe and other parts, I think in Europe generally they used to talk about 4 elements. Whereas in India, they talk about 5 elements because they include space as an element. But these are, in terms of the material world, they are, we can say they're qualities. That is, space, space is that which contains all these. Air is the quality of the vaporous state, we can say. Water is the liquid state, earth is the solid state, and fire is the power which transforms it. That's how these concepts arise. So it's not elements in the sense of chemical elements, but it's elements in the sense of the qualities that make up this world appearance. But these are just conceptual things, but it's just Bhagavan isn't trying to present a conceptual picture of the world. It's just because that idea, that's just a background to what he's saying. Oh, and regarding these 5 elements, particularly in Sankhya, they're very much into these 5 elements. And they're also what they call tanmatras, which are these elements in a subtle form. So even the mind, which is not made from physical matter, it still consists of these elements in subtle form. So but Bhagavan isn't trying to get us to go into this sort of philosophy. What he means is if everything, all these 5 elements, space, air, fire, water, earth, in other words, the totality of all material things, and not only material things, also mental things, and everything that is composed of these things, which includes all these living beings, if none of these things exist beside you, Aruṇācala, who are the space of light, namely the light of pure awareness, who else am I other than you? That's the main point. So that is, if nothing exists other than Aruṇācala, besides Aruṇācala, then who else am I other than you? That is, it's a very, very beautiful verse, this 7th verse, because, wait a second, I'll just get the verse, because we have to take the whole thing together to really understand it. What he says is, if these 5 elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth, and everything that's composed of these elements, which expand as all these many living beings, are not other than you, the space of light, who else am I? In other words, who am I other than you? Who is this I? O blemishless, if you shine without another in the heart at that space, the space of pure awareness, who am I who come outside as if another? So in other words, what is this? If you are that which appears as all these things, and if you are what shine in the heart of that space of pure awareness, who is this I who rises as if other than you? And then he ends with a prayer, may you come outside. In other words, may you show yourself, Aruṇācala, placing your fully blossomed lotus feet on his head. That is on the head of this ego. So this is a beautiful prayer. Who am I other than you? What right do I have to claim any being, any existence other than you? So what is this I that rises as if another? And then it ends with the prayer, may you show yourself thereby putting your lotus feet on his head. In other words, crushing this ego. That is, ego rises because we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are. What we actually are is that light of pure awareness, which is Aruṇācala. So if we know ourselves as we actually are, this ego will be crushed. So what he's praying for is Aruṇācala, the light of pure awareness, which is our own self, our own real nature, what we actually are, to reveal itself. That's what he means by when he said, may you come outside. It means may you show yourself as you actually are. Make me see you as you actually are. Because only when I see you as you actually are, will this rising I be crushed. So he uses, but it's poetry. The whole thing is it's all poetry, and he's expressing that in a poetic way, placing your fully blossomed lotus feet on his head. So it's this is a beautiful. This verse is beautiful in so many ways. Firstly, it's an Advaitic prayer. It emphasizes how can there be any I other than Aruṇācala, which is the one infinite space of pure awareness. There can't be any other I. But this I seems to exist, and when it rises, it sees Aruṇācala as all this vast universe, composed of all these elements and so many living beings and all these things. But who is this I? In whose view all these things appear? So I mean, it's so beautiful, this verse. So, but the point is not about the elements. The point is about this I. What is this I that rises and sees all this multiplicity? I hope that's a clear answer to that question.
And Sanjay has asked the question on Shakti, isn't it? So
yeah, he's asked that already. So yes.
And everything from that. Yeah. I think we can end today because Lasya had a question, but but I think she said she'll keep it for next time because it is now 5:10.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a long session, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So we'll end. Thank you very much, Michael.
Okay. Thank you.
I think everybody is flooded with comments about yes, your patience and your kindness in answering all these questions so very thoughtfully. Thank you. And thank you everyone for coming. And we can close with Bhagavan's mantra. We'll do it together. Om Namo Bhagavate Śrī Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Śrī Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Śrī Ramanaya.